Hi everyone. We're going to start the first workshop just about now. We're going to have developer Ali and Juchan from IBM who will be leading a workshop on design thinking. Developer Ali and Juchan are developer advocates at IBM. They work closely with developer communities and academia throughout Australia and New Zealand. They are coders and tech enthusiasts who love sharing their knowledge through workshops and events throughout the community and applying the tech knowledge for good. Developer Ali and Juchan, please take it away.
Hi everyone, I'm Developer Ali.
Hello, I'm Gloria, or as my team actually calls me, G-Chan.
And we present a design thinking, not just another design thinking workshop today. Welcome. Let's get started.
Just a disclaimer, this is going to be relatively informal, so there will be, I think, 1 or 2 interactive pieces. So when the time comes, please do join in, and yeah, let's have some fun.
And just a quick FYI as well, if you wanted to look at the slides in a little more detail, you can click at the top right of the slide screen and you'll be able to see it in full screen for yourself as well. So who are we? Thanks for the intro, Catherine. I'm Developer Ali. I love dogs and coding and doing tech for good things. I love getting out in the community and giving workshops and helping to solve problems. So really happy to be at hackathons. We do a lot of workshops and I love seeing the innovative ideas come out of this, and especially since this topic is so relevant, really happy to be here. And G-Chan?
Oh wow, that's a hard one to follow the footsteps, but yeah. So I'm also a developer advocate, and I am also very enthusiastic about running hackathons and workshops. I actually am a mentor and have been for the past 3 or 4 years. So I think I'm in like 5 or 6 mentor programs this year. So really enjoy that give back, and hence why I'm here today as well. And hopefully you guys learn something out of today's design thinking, or not just another design thinking workshop.
As we like to call it. Yep, you can find us on Twitter and LinkedIn as well if you wanted to hit us up or you have any other questions outside of today's event. So why we're here, as G-Chan said, we're here to give you some tools and tips for validating your idea and project, which is super important when you're doing a kind of time-limited hackathon product, to make sure that your pitch at the end is valuable and the idea that you're working on so hard for this period is valuable as well. And we're going to try and give you an easy, valuable framework to do this and make it a success. So what we're not here to do, take up valuable hacking or development time for no good reason. No one needs that. Or give you a bunch of corporate speak with no real relevance. So we're not here to do that. So let's hope we achieve those goals. So G-Chan, I know when I come to a hackathon, I've got a limited time frame, like I just said, to get things done. And usually I've kind of got a bit of a seed of an idea of what I want to build. And generally I just want to crack on, get stuck in, and build something. And, you know, I've had some bad experiences with people like forcing these workshops on me, and they're like 2 hours of my valuable time for nothing. I hate that. So, but what I found over the years is that if you don't kind of validate your idea and solution before you're starting, you're going to waste a bunch of time on developing something that maybe isn't very useful. So that's what we're trying to avoid today. And G-Chan, maybe you can explain to me what design thinking is and why I should prioritize using some of my valuable hack time to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll do a very brief version. So the way I understand it is design thinking is a process or a methodology, same, where you develop an understanding of the user, so the person that you're actually trying to build your solution for. And it's really useful to tackle problems that aren't defined yet. So for example, if you're not given any requirements of what you need to build, and that sort of thing. So basically, design thinking helps you think from a human-centric point of view.
Okay, awesome. So kind of the same as the age-old carpenter's adage, measure twice, cut once a little bit. And obviously, I don't want to end up on the startup version of Kitchen Nightmares. So probably a good idea to do some design thinking and validate my idea beforehand. But where do we start, G-Chan? Like, I'm in, but where do we start?
Yeah, so you actually start with an intent. So really what that means is you try to identify the right problem to solve. So some of the questions that I like to think about is, what are your reasons for actually being here today? And what is the motivation behind designing your solution?
Okay, so kind of for this event, our intent is a little bit defined for us. It's looking at innovative ways to defend communities against a pandemic. And I know there's 3 problem statements that further define the problem sitting under that. So is that my what for being here? Is that my reason for being here today?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, great. So I can start coding, right?
Not yet, Ali. Let's wait a minute. Yeah. So actually, once you've actually created the intent or the what of this process, is we want to create a who. So the way that we create a who is actually through a persona. So before I get into that, Ali, can you just explain this?
So like you've just said, I need to define who I'm actually building this what for. So this is a great meme on what happens if you don't really define your users' needs, who they are, why they would use your product before you start building it. It's how different people see it. I love the roller coaster. It's like how the customer was built. What the customer really needed was a tire swing, and there's all versions of iterations around that. One of my favorite memes as a developer. That happens so often. So what we're going to do to avoid that is, like G-Chan said, creating a persona. So understanding our user.
Yeah, so the way I explain it, a persona is like a fake user. So you're creating a fake person from scratch, and with the intention to understand and focus your solution on that user. So you're building it for that user.
Okay, awesome. So how would we go about creating this persona?
Yeah, so when you think of describing an actual person, you start by, your name, your age, and that sort of thing. So those are pretty standard. But then you should also consider some other questions that kind of delve a bit deeper. So as you can see on the screen, we've got 5 key questions. So what are the users' pain points? What do they value? What motivates them? What are they thinking and feeling? And what do you still not know about them? So this kind of gives you a better understanding of your user.
Yeah, they're kind of thought questions to get into the head of someone that would actually use your product, I suppose. And
yeah,
your character, I guess, like any good novelist or writer would do, they want to really understand their user, or they can't write from their perspective. It's the same, you can't develop from someone's perspective without understanding them, I suppose.
Yeah, so like a really good like quote is that you're stepping into their shoes. So yeah, imagine if you found a pair of shoes on the floor, and then you decided that you want to step into their shoes and see what their world is like.
Love it. Okay, so I think we'll do a little exercise here and maybe create a persona together. What do you think?
Yeah, so this is where we'll need the participants' help. So we've got a picture of just a lady, female, and we need your help in giving her a name and all of the characteristics you see on the screen. And basically, there's a chat function on Remo. And yes. Thank you, Ali. First person that comes up with a name and any other feature, we'll add them in as we go. And let's create this fake persona together.
So what should her name be? Karen it is. Oh, my sister's actually called Karen, and I really feel sorry for her in today's world. But I love that we're creating an awesome persona called Karen. How about her age? 25? I love it. All right, perfect. What about a job for Karen? What should she do? Teacher?
She's a teacher.
My sister's also a teacher. It's like you know her. What sort of teacher is she?
So what subjects is she
She does have
teaching?
long hair. My sister too. No, she doesn't. Math teacher.
She's teaching
Okay, love that.
mathematics.
Maths teacher. Perfect. For high schoolers, love shopping. Okay, we're going to put that in. Love shopping. What else do we want to know about Karen? She's from Sydney. Okay. Beautiful Sydney Harbour City, where me and G-Chan both are today. Love it.
Mhm.
I actually did go to ANU though, fun fact, a long time ago. What about her goals? An amputee, yeah, we can make that a feature. So she's disabled.
She's also got long hair.
And long hair, okay, yep, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, hairdressers love knowing that. So what about her goals? What does she want to achieve?
She wants a partner. Okay,
Well,
yeah.
business partner?
She's a bit
Can I
lonely.
put,
I was thinking relationship partner.
that was me. Where's my business partner? I would say wants a partner, open to interpretation. This is why we try and get in the head of a user, because make children passionate about maths. I love that goal. Thank you, Talia.
Yes. Wants a super app that answers all her needs. Like Google.
Does know everything and wants a Google super app. Okay, sure. How about education? I assume she's done a maths degree and maybe a teaching degree also, actually. That's my assumption, but maybe she's got a PhD in science. I don't know. Enable better. I love that.
She's got an ANU maths degree.
In COVID. Alrighty. I think we've pretty much filled out this profile, actually. So awesome work, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to throw in a PhD in quantum physics because, you know, she seems cool. And why not? All right. I love it. Thank you so much for your input, guys. Really appreciate that. So this is great, G-Chan. Now I've got a persona. So what is well, really, you should probably create 3 or 4 different user personas. So Karen's going to have different goals to say some other user that maybe is 40, already has a family, isn't a teacher, or maybe is a teacher in a different field, arts teacher, for example. Maybe she is. Maybe your users are all targeting teachers. That's fine. There are different personas that kind of have different goals and interests as well. I love that she loves shopping. I really want to know what she buys now. But what do we do? So I can start developing now, right, G-Chan? I've got my personas. I know my what. I know my who. I'm good to go, right?
No, not yet, Ali.
Not
yet. You know me too well. So another question is why do we need to do this? Ali?
Because it's cool, right? I want to app that she can use everywhere and is the next Google. That's cool, right?
Yeah, it's cool, but is that going to help? You know, is it going to be useful? How are people going to use it?
I guess I don't really know, G-Chan. So yeah, maybe it's a bit pointless spending a bunch of my time and years of my life working on the next Google if I'm not sure if it's useful for people. So how do I figure that out?
So we use need statements. So the point of a need statement is to help understand and reflect on a user's motivations and goals. So
okay, so how would we go about figuring out about aligning our needs statements to the user pain points and user opportunities? Like where would I start with a need statement?
Yeah, so need statement is really interesting. It actually already has a format for you. So every need statement that you create needs to be in the format of the user needs a way to do something that addresses their need so that they can benefit directly.
Okay. So with our persona, what might be an example need statement for Karen, our maths teacher?
Oh, you are putting me on the spot, aren't you?
So Karen needs a way to facilitate remote education so that she can continue to share her passion of maths with students. Was that a new statement?
Yes, that's an amazing need statement.
It's all about the teacher, G-Shan, so thanks. So you ask yourself questions. What does the user seek? What do they really want? And why are these ideas important to them? I love that. So how would we, so I've heard about kind of different ways of thinking about this problem. How might we go about that?
Yeah, so it's interesting you say that. So a lot of people, when they do need statements, they actually get confused with an idea and a feature. So an idea is like, it will describe the experience of a user for the solution, whereas a feature will describe just an aspect of the solution. So don't write features when you're doing need statements. They need to be like a really big idea.
Okay.
So some of the questions that you can ask yourselves are, what does, in our case, Karen really want? What is she looking for? What is important to her? So these are the questions that you need to ask yourself, or when you're stepping into your persona's shoes, to really understand from their point of view what they need and want.
Okay, so these post-its on this slide, what do they represent? Because I can kind of see like joint post-its down the sides. Are they different everyone's ideas? Does everyone group think this, or do we do it individually and then come back together? What do these post-its represent, and how do we go about this process?
Good question. So when you're actually ideating, it's really good that you do a bit of individual thinking. So there are two types of thinking. One is divergent and one is convergent. So convergent is when you're thinking individually, right? But then you come up with the craziest ideas, like Karen wants something from space. Like, that's like a big idea, right? Like,
Karen wants to set up a school on the moon to avoid the pandemic and be able to put together, for example. Yeah, that's a cool idea.
Exactly.
Right?
So
maybe a space satellite. I don't know, but there's no bad ideas, is there?
No, there are never any bad ideas. So the good thing is that when you actually ideate by yourself, you're not focusing on other people trying to criticize or shut your idea down. And then that's where the idea of conversion comes. So after you've come up with all your crazy ideas, you then come together as a team and very quickly go through all of the ideas, and then kind of build off them.
So you would probably spend 10 or 15 minutes putting individual post-its, and you can do that in Remo, actually. If we start a whiteboard, we can give a quick example of that. You can do it in Remo by just putting some post-it notes on the whiteboard of all your crazy and grand and awesome ideas, and you kind of just spend 10 or 15 minutes doing that individually, and then you set a timer at the beginning. So say you were doing it for 10 minutes, put all your crazy ideas up there, and then you come back together as a team and go through the ideas. Is that how you'd kind of do it?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So I was going to show you, but we might go on to the next part. So once we've got all these kind of ideas and we've kind of got some favorites amongst our team, I'm good to go, right? I know which idea probably makes the most sense. Yeah?
No. So in that process of creating your need statements and your big ideas, you might have like 100 ideas. Are you going to implement 100 ideas into your solution?
I mean, how many
Ali?
hours have I got in this hackathon? Is that like one idea an hour? Probably not is the answer to that question.
Yeah. So the good thing is there is something called a prioritization grid. So it helps you kind of filter and sort out the tasks based on any factor that you want, but mainly it's feasibility and impact. So this is the how of the design thinking process. So it actually splits into two parts. So each person in the team, they actually get the same number of votes. So I could say 2 votes per round. So you would assign maybe 2 different colors. So maybe impact is green and then feasibility is red. And then you vote silently and individually on the big ideas.
It does have a vote feature on its post-its. This is cool. You can do this online, which is awesome.
Yeah, so you vote, obviously the way that it will work is the one with the most votes is probably the most feasible, or as in like the one with the most green votes is the most feasible, and then obviously the one with the least green votes is the probably you shouldn't touch.
So if we had 100 ideas and we all voted and some of them got no votes, those ideas would be eliminated in the first round, and then we kind of keep going until we narrowed it down a little bit?
So you don't actually have to do multiple rounds. So generally 1 round does suffice, because you do then have your spectrum of, here are most people agree that this is the easiest to do, and everyone agrees that this is not that easy. But in saying that, this is where part 2 comes in. So part 2 of the prioritization grid is plotting. So when you can actually see everyone's votes, you see obviously this is high impact and high feasibility. So this is a graph that you can plot it on. So the one with the most votes would then be put onto this graph. So if we look very closely, the very lightest blue is your no-brainers. So they're the ones that have the most.
Sorry to interrupt, G-Chan, but just a quick question on this graph. These axes, are these the impact and feasibility axes, or how would we define these axes?
Yes, sorry, I didn't explain that. So you are right. So the one that's going vertically, that would be impact, and then feasibility would be horizontal, but it doesn't really matter. You could swap them around. It would create the same curves and diagram, basically.
So I guess when we're looking at ideas we've come up with for our personas, including Karen, and going to the moon and starting a school, that's probably not very feasible unless you're Elon Musk. So I guess that would go in the lower quadrant there. Impact, though, I don't know how I'd judge that. Maybe mid-wise, but either way, I think it turns out to be an ignore idea, which is a shame because it's kind of.
We don't. So that was another thing that I was going to add, is that even if they don't. Well, actually, no, never mind. I'll explain it in the next part, but.
All right. So at the end of this prioritization grid, so we've voted and at the end of this, we've probably got a bit of an obvious choice that we can go through with. And I'm just going to go outside of the design thinking world and speak a little bit specifically towards a hackathon. There's some also great ways to validate if that idea is good as well. So you've come up with what you think is a big bet or a no-brainer idea. And there's some ways to validate that, which include talking to people in that industry. So not just using your persona, but actually reaching out to someone on LinkedIn or one of the mentors here that might have some specific advice on whether that is a valid idea. There's also surveys. So you So you could create a little bit of a survey and see if you can find target users to answer that during the hackathon. Those are great things to bring to pitches, and they help validate your idea as well. So just stepping outside of the ID thinking a bit into the business side of hackathons, I guess you'd say. So there's some simple ways to validate your idea. So moving on with this design thinking process, there's also a few other things to think about that we probably haven't covered because we've got a bit of a short time frame here, and we want you to be able to get on with your code and only give you the, the best kind of parts of design thinking. So there's a couple of additional thoughts just before we outro here into why design thinking is useful. So you what have we done so far, G-Chan? We've got our what, we know why we're here, what we want to deliver, which is an innovation solution for the pandemic. We've got our who, we've got a few users that we can really get into their thoughts and try and understand if they would use this product, how they would use it, etc. And we've got our kind of best ideas. We've validated our best ideas with a prioritization map. So the other thing to consider, which is useful for hackathons as well, is kind of your mapping and your future roadmap. So you might have, for stakeholder mapping, users aren't the only ones that are going to be interested in your product. And you kind of always potentially need to cater for a stakeholder, which in the case of this hackathon might potentially just be the judges. They're going to ask business questions of you, and you kind of need to have an answer to that. Like, how will this be funded? Can you scale it? Do you have an idea of the tech stack that you would use, even if it's not the same as the MVP that you create in the next couple of days, because obviously it's a hackathon. You've got limited time. Everyone understands that. But do you have an idea of that tech stack for the future? And these things kind of lead into the roadmap as well, which maybe you can explain for us, G-Chan.
Yeah, so actually before I wanted to jump to roadmap, just to add to your stakeholder mapping, so you would do this after you do all your personas, need statements and prioritization grids, right? And also think about partnerships as well. So when you spoke about the funding model, it doesn't have to be a monetary value of I'm going to sponsor you $10,000 for this, great solution. You can also think about partnerships for, depending on your solution, maybe with government organizations. And think
even
about
out-of-the-box partnerships. This stakeholder mapping could be another kind of ideation phase where you can stick up some post-it notes and go wild with your ideas. For example, I once started a kind of a laundry Uber startup. So basically, we were going to, do an Uber version of like getting your laundry done, I suppose. And one of the partnerships we thought about was selling detergents on our app. We didn't actually go through with it, so it doesn't exist. Don't look it up. But, I mean, you can think about out-of-the-box partnerships like that. You could also, another model is kind of premium membership, which is happening a lot now as well. So you could have certain features you do for free, for example, in an app, and then a premium level, which allows you to do more. Obviously, this is tech for good, but it's really good to think about a funding model early, because if you do want to build this out, and it is a great idea, and I'm sure there's going to be heaps of them today, which I'm excited about, then you do want to have kind of some idea of potentially where you might go with that.
Yeah, to just quickly summarize that in one sentence, I would say stakeholder mapping is identifying anyone that is impacted by your solution.
Thanks, G-Chan. I do go on, so I appreciate it. For the roadmap, I guess anything obviously you're not going to build out everything in a weekend, so you can put in a roadmap of development where you would see this going in the future, kind of what features you would see in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Is that right, G-Chan?
No. So not features, but the experiences. So remember when we did the need statements, we never focused on features. Okay. So we always focus on an experience. So when you write the roadmap, when you write the roadmap focus back on what Karen wants. What does she want to see in the future? And that's how you'll create your roadmap. So in your hackathon, you will create what we call an MVP, which is a minimal viable product, which is basically the smallest working product or solution, and it doesn't have to have all the experiences included. The experiences that you really want to include but couldn't finish off in this hackathon will then be added to your roadmap.
I love it. So really, you know, I'm creating an element cake. I'm under time pressure. I don't have the full idea of how to make it yet. But I have validated my ideas, and the end product is going to look somewhat similar to the grand idea I had initially, I guess is my analogy for it a little bit. And by the way, I actually made this cake, the one on the left, unfortunately, not the one on the right. I'm working on that. I'm working on it. It's you know, in production. So my way of thinking is this is a little bit of an MVP. It's an element cake. To your final production ready solution. But either way, you can tell that it's the same idea, I guess is the point. You won't make it to the polished solution in a hackathon, but you will be on the right path. So has anyone got any for go bring your solution to life? And feel free to write them in the Q&A or in the group chat. Otherwise, just we can answer them later as well. So if you do come up with a question afterwards and that we haven't answered quite right, feel free to send us a message and we'll help with that. So G-Chan, can I start coding now?
Yes, actually you can. So there is a question, is how do you define an MVP? So when you created your need statements and then you prioritized, the no-brainers would form part of your MVP. So think of a project and you've got a hard deadline. So your deadline is next Saturday. What you can build as a working solution, so that's the key. It has to be working front end and back end. The working solution, and it could have...
Yeah, the MVP would really contain the main features, the main idea that you're trying to bring to life here. So it would be, like G-Chan said, a completely working product. You'd have a back end, a front end, a database, all hooked up, ready to go. User can enter their name and start using it. But you'd probably limit the features to only those ones that really show your idea, that really highlight that. And that's how you would build an MVP. So I hope that answered your question, Mark. Sorry, not Mark. Yi?
Sorry, no.
Perfect.
So then we have a question from Z Chow. What about multiple personas? Oh, I just got an extra question. Maybe Karen and someone else
when they conflict, the multiple personas.
So I personally would say that if there is a really big conflict, that you just focus on one user, so one persona. So the reason I say that is that you can't cater to every person in this planet. Pick the one that you want and then work towards that. So focus on Karen or focus on the other person you're trying to create. The personas is just for you to understand from different perspectives. So when you're actually creating your solution and your pitch, it allows you to see things from multiple perspectives. And these could form as part of questions that the judges may ask you. And the personas will then help you kind of...
Yeah, so those personas will identify where you do have a kind of divergence in interest, and that will also inform your thinking for the product, as G-Chan said as well, because overcoming those challenges are often where you make the most innovation. So that's where your innovative thinking comes into it. How do you solve the different interests of users? and incorporate that in your product, because that's really where the niche kind of products live. They overcome, so a lot of products answer one thing. If yours can answer that question for two different users and align them, well, you're probably onto a good thing. So that's part of the challenge, definitely. I think we've also got a question here from Sophie. Which user validation process is the most accurate one? I think, how do we know Karen is accurate of the user demographic? You're welcome, Zishao. I hope I said that right, sorry. So answering your question there, Sophie, how do we know Karen is accurate of the user demographic? You're completely right. We really don't. And the only way to validate that is to go and talk to real people. For example, doing a quick Google survey, Google Docs survey, and sending it to people that you think are your users. If they would use a product like yours, then you've probably got an accurate idea of your user. If they wouldn't use a product like yours, then potentially you've got the wrong user base. So that's one good way to validate it that I can think of off the top of my head. And the other way, is to actually ask those people. You don't even need to do a survey, just ask, go and find someone that's working in that industry. And not only will they give you feedback on whether that's a cool idea, whether they think they would use it, insights that you otherwise wouldn't have because you didn't ask them. So there are two things off the top of my head. Do you have anything to add there, Jason? Or?
Just, it doesn't even have to be industry. You could just ask your family members, like if you've got a sister or parents and aunties, uncles, and ask for their perspective. Do you think this is a good idea? And that's a way of validating, well, one, your solution.
Your first stage. I really think you need to go to your market to validate properly, though. You really do need to find people that might use that product. For example, with my laundry Uber idea, definitely going to my mum and going, would you do this? Would you clean other people's clothes for money? Because I thought that maybe potentially she would, is a good idea. But for example, I would hate to do that. And there's a certain threshold that I'd pay to have someone else to do my laundry as well. So you're kind of balancing a lot of things when you start thinking through your idea and validating with people that would actually use your product. So I hope that helps, Sophie. Is there any other questions from the audience? All righty. All right, everyone. Well, good luck. I hope we taught you something. That we were
hope you've learnt something. That was my goal for today.
Totally. And we will be playing a video from the Clinton Foundation Institution University following this presentation. So that will be on next. But we'll also be around. So if there is something that we haven't answered or you think of later, please feel free to just reach out and we'll do that. So yeah, hope everyone enjoyed our presentation, and we
have a special guest coming back.
Oh, hey everyone. Thank you so much, Developer Ali and Jichan, for presenting that. As Developer Ali said, we're just about to pass the mic over to the Impact and Design Manager from the Clinton Global Initiative University. But just before that, we'd like to give a bit of a shout out to one of IBM's projects that you guys can also get involved in after the hackathon as well. As of July 31, submissions for the 2020 Call for Code Global Challenge are closed, but another chapter awaits for Call for Code. And IBM definitely needs your help. Whether you're looking to take on COVID-19, climate change, natural disasters, or other pressing social issues, your code has a really vital role to play. So you can brush up on your cloud skills and make a real difference and get involved with Call for Code, open source project supported by the Linux Foundation. Our team from the ANU Humanitarian Innovation Society will send all these links through to these projects in emails pretty soon. But now we'll pass the mic on to Mayuka, who is the Impact and Design Manager from the Clinton Global Initiative University. And she will be talking a bit about the commitment to action model that guides a long-term social impact project.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Catherine. And yes, call for code. You can go to ibm.developer/call for code and check that out as well. And we'll post a link later. And as Catherine said, that's going out in emails. A really, really great tech for good kind of challenge as well that maybe is multifaceted and you can play off the idea you come up with here. So passing the mic to Maisha now. Thanks again, everyone. Really appreciate it.